Really glad, honored, pleased to welcome Nina Cerar, co-founder of Blockchain Recorded Podcast. I'm lucky to spend some time in real life with Nina a few months ago, with the co-founder Tali and Silvio. We are together. You are delivering a really slow information, slow content, really qualitative, interviewing a really long-term builder, people delivering really valuable. I'm honored to took part to one episode last year. It was nice. I felt really confident. It's not so easy to talk publicly, and you are really this talent, elegance to help to feel comfortable, and it's precious and rare. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to have you on board in this Web3 Stronger Together initiative, this summit, and to host you for your keynote. Welcome, Nina.
Well, Laurent, thank you so much for the kind introduction. You give me too much credit. And hello to everyone. I think I'm the second Nina today, if I'm not mistaken. And as Laurent mentioned, maybe some of you know me or at least have heard of a podcast I host called Blockchain Recorded. It's one of the busier tasks I'm involved with respect to Web3. It's a passion of mine shared with my co founders, who are also involved with one of the more technical projects presented in this summit. So, unlike my colleague Tali, who had a technical keynote yesterday about secure communication, mine will take a non technical, more reflective form, furthering the importance of education, which has obviously been a key takeaway from this summit in general. So, first and foremost, I'm so thankful to be part of this initiative of a magnitude of this size that is nonprofit. It's important to note, and designed to foster support, collaboration, networking. I mean, we're all learning a ton here. And sparks and positivity are definitely flying and affirming, or perhaps not affirming, our roles. So there's my politically correct introduction. Um, so education is at the forefront. I will dare to go further to say that we need to pay attention to quality Web3 education, and take a step back to revisit the core understanding of blockchain and Web3 fundamentals, despite being repetitive for some. Of course, I will try to define what I mean by education and what I mean by quality, remind you of the fundamentals, and leave you with key takeaways. But first, and actually without PowerPoint slides, I'd like to share my story and what I have learned throughout my Web3 journey from the pre-ICO era to the blockchain recorded startup, with reflections along the way and challenges myself and my team face. So don't worry, this is not all about me. It's actually about all of us, because as cheesy as it sounds, we're all part of the Web3 puzzle. And hopefully by talking today, I'll motivate you to not only talk about how important education is, but consider supporting educational efforts. So my Web3 story began sometime in 2016, later than the OGs of early 2010s and some of the people here. And given my corporate finance background, Bitcoin typically as a store of value and exchange captured my interest first before I had the aha moment of understanding the power of blockchain tech and its transformative use cases. Um, my aha moment was really a moment of frustration where when everyone in the crypto space seemed in hype mode in 2017, I was invited to join a startup team in Central Eastern Europe, where I live, to research and report on promising ICO projects. Back then, this was right after the crypto market started crashing. The team needed a native English speaker, so I said, sure, why not? I mean, I was attracted to this space, looking for new ventures and curious about what the psychological hype was all about. Even though it was strangely familiar to the dot-com one in the early 2000s And yes, that is how old I am to remember that. That was actually, I was an analyst on Wall Street. It was my first job. So I was given, bottom line, I was giving a prepared set of basic questions and assured it's okay if I don't understand what I'm asking, as long as the project was presented. And right away, I thought, that's ridiculous. And it's my responsibility to understand what I'm asking. What if the project's full of crap and I'm making a fool out of myself on social media? So, in order to prepare for interviews, I was searching for content that would help me understand the ins and outs of blockchain technicals, their use cases, as much as possible. Um, and I soon realized that blockchain based, high quality, value added content was hard to come by, um, especially in the unbiased, objective, and easier to understand and non promotional form, right? So, although there were some helpful popular content creators on YouTube and other platforms that were talking about use cases, aside from coins to invest in, and they still had to monetize with sponsors. So, one had to take the content with a grain of salt. Um, some others who were not were knowledgeable, but too technical or too long for me to understand at the time. So, apart from the lack of quality and non-biased educational content, by the way, Gary Gensler's MIT blockchain course videos came after my startup interviewing stunt, um, and that's a whole other story. But I discovered another problem. Um, I was slightly naive, but majorly skeptical towards everyone I interviewed during those months, and I noticed a pattern. Teams had all kinds of advisors repeating the same crypto mantra, how blockchain was revolutionary and how there are early investors across a board of projects where at least one was bound to succeed. The advisor profile pictures who, well, 99.9% were male, but that's a whole nother topic, were popping up everywhere, which set off an alarm in my mind. And I thought, how the heck do these individuals in company management, such as, CEOs and heads of marketing and heads of this and that, find time to advise on so many projects aside from their own line of work and understand the terms blockchain, crypto? I guess the Web3 term wasn't as mainstream back then, et cetera. I was thinking, are they really experts? Because a lot of the answers to my questions of why blockchain was important, and the fundamentals, to their respective projects were just textbook copy paste answers. And it seemed that blockchain was stamped on everything and many times without need, just to raise funds. So I'm sure many of you remember this and actually perhaps still come across it. In fact, I certainly do when researching projects wanting to be on our podcast. But what really opened my eyes back then were the incognito conversations with the supporting teams and developers in the background that painted a more accurate story. The devs and support teams had so much knowledge and own opinion, yet unfortunately, a lot of them were too shy or introverted to speak. At times, language was a barrier. I'm based in Central Eastern Europe. And a lot of times, it didn't matter what they thought. They were just, doing their job. And management was doing the PR. So anyhow, most of those frequent profile exec pictures are no longer on countless project web pages today. Only a select few remained, from what I had experience with. And those few that understood blockchain and Web3 fundamentals and, the buzzwords. But more importantly, the team and community had a clear purpose and vision to this day, and were eager to also translate the complexities and use cases behind their ecosystems in easy understand speak, um, all while nurturing their communities and trying not to come off as a speculative project with a coin to invest in. Pretty hard to do, right? And impossible without funding, which is not easy to come by if you're outside of the US. So fast forward today, I guess we're 13 years into the grand, some may call it crypto experiment, post our scammy ICO days, bankruptcies, SBF-like actors, liquidations, fraud activity, you name it, now more layoffs, right? Um, all of the above headlines, the Web3 space is still highly misunderstood and exclusive. And I think the state of crypto today does not fully reflect the technology, but still says a lot of the speculation and greedy hands surrounding it. Although it's cleaned out a lot since 2018 and years before. But It's at a critical point. It's not a fad, it's here to stay. And the path forward will require, I would say, reconciling between the promises of how blockchain can improve our lives and the cryptocurrency, greed hype on the individual and institutional level, right? We know this. And this is where education comes in. And unfortunately, a lot of the core Web3 narrative still gets lost under the thick layers of incentive based crypto marketing that promotes whatever is hot on the market or whatever sponsors pay for. This is a big challenge, also, what our team faces. Um, Also, although more and more people are familiar with blockchain fundamentals are still not fully understood, what I find. Or people have just been so strongly put off by the recent scandals that they're becoming immune. Or, as has been said time and time again in the summit, there's the problem of simple infrastructure access to get information to certain parts of the world. Although I don't have a solution for the latter basic need, which definitely needs solving. I do believe that quality, unbased education about Web3 fundamentals is needed now more than ever, and it's key to any new technology adoption. And obviously, Web3 is no different. Um, so, what do I mean by unbiased education about Web3 fundamentals? That statement in itself is very broad. It can include, for example, anything from university or college courses. I believe there's some academia folk in the summit who teach or offer payable courses. From the highly funded Web3 online academies that are again payable, IT developer boot camps, biz dev boot camps, you name it, other forms of payable modules that are part of online subscription content. Those forms are increasingly gaining momentum, along with a subscription model of content providers today, and some of you already have experience with those. But then we have the medium of free, publicly accessible content. So video, audio podcasts that anyone can listen to anywhere and anytime. I promise this is not a pitch, I promise. But in terms of podcasts, I believe they and similar conversational programs have extreme potential in reaching effect, which we have seen throughout our experience and also today, by just engaging and connecting in the summit. Interview based podcasts provide authenticity through conversation and the chance to dive deep. Um, and now, to finally define what I mean by high quality, I mean doing proper research before conversations and truly trying to educate with Web3 fundamentals always in mind. Quality also means listening to building teams themselves directly and trying not to repeat in discussions what is already published, but diving deeper into the use cases and challenging in dialogue, trying to filter facts from the noise, right? Quality means being objective, ethical, inclusive. We've said this over and over again, with integrity, and giving voice to pioneers within the space, whether it's a founder from the Netherlands or developer from Ukraine or Web3 project from Kenya with a good blockchain use case. So it's not just Silicon Valley, no offense. But there are many underrated projects and knowledgeable people out there that should have voice. And podcasts are a great disseminating medium to try on board as equally as possible. And again, I don't want this to sound like a pitch speech. What I'm trying to say is that giving voice to good, solid projects while doing proper due diligence to avoid scammy and hot at the moment content is important. It's also intensive to do and cannot be done without support. So this brings me to my next points. You might be thinking and saying now, but there's so many podcasts and content creators now. What are you talking about? There's so much information. Sure, there's a lot of choice, but that doesn't mean it's all quality and unbiased. So the challenge for the listener or the user in need of content is to decipher quality. I would give you a hint here. The more you listen to podcasts, the more you'll be able to distinguish between hype marketing, facts, and transparency. But also keep in mind about the fundamentals I keep reiterating. And last but not least, check out the research team doing the work to get a better idea of their values and intent. Maybe at this point, let me quickly remind everyone of those Web3 fundamentals I keep alluding to. We know online trust, decentralization, which is obviously a controversial topic in itself with multiple points of view, and we're still working on that one. And it's good that we have these conversations. That's permissionless systems, data ownership, transparency, traceability, censorship resistance. You get the picture. I'm reminding you, right? This is what we strive for in Web3. And also, as we have seen, there's a repetitive crypto cycle we can't ignore. And with each bull run, these core Web3 values get clouded by whichever new hot thing comes along. Speculators show with all kinds of money grabbing schemes. And each bull cycle gets larger, and with it brings I would argue, even a whole new set of misinformation. And my team and I talk about this a lot. So it's important to have these conversations. So moving on, as much as it is a challenge for a listener to choose and dedicate time to content, keep in mind there's major challenges podcast teams face. One, monetization is obviously a big one. Fair podcast teams that really care about education and discourse and are not into commercially bombarding on Twitter all the time do not charge their guests. Credible sponsors credible sponsors are difficult to come by without connections and grand budgets. Grant budgets basically dry up during low market bear times. So sponsorships are tricky, who to pick, etc. Or to have a choice is also important. And also another challenge is that, surely podcast teams make mistakes and regret some guest choices for conversations, or even sponsors for that matter. But without mistakes, we wouldn't learn to identify red flags or the don'ts down the road, right? So after all, you form your own opinion as the audience. So in summary, I can't stress enough the importance of quality, unbiased, unhyped educational programs. Pay attention to them. The more, the better. There shouldn't be a competition. Second, let's not forget the blockchain fundamentals to further a healthy attempt to transform the way we trust, exchange value, live our lives, right? This is all that we're trying to talk about in the summit. And lastly, let's all try to support educators and real use case dialogue facilitators in any capacity that we can, whether by input, ideas, feedback, financing, whatnot. Even if the content is either too easy or too hard to understand, there's still a diverse audience out there to present solid use cases to. So please engage in that community, because ultimately it's really all part of our bigger Web3 family. So with that, I thank you for listening. And thanks, Laurent, for having me and my team. Hats off to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Nina. It's more than a pleasure. It's a source of inspiration. It's a confirmation. It's giving a boost of hope. It's exactly what I also try to initiate and share through Web3 Stronger Together. And I'm really glad, honored that you join this initiative, and even more that you had the stage. It's really, and I know that it's a beginning. We have all learned a lot during this organization, and we keep learning. And we have all this absolute desire to deliver the best and to create a smart, sustainable place where everyone from everywhere can take benefit of this alternative. We all need this, and I know how you constantly, strongly, and brilliantly contribute to spread all around. I invite everybody to have a look um, and to listen. It's fascinating. You will learn a lot. It's really pleasant. Thanks again, and see you soon, Nina.
Thanks so much, Laurent. And again, like I said, hats off to everybody here. You guys are doing an amazing job. So, Lynn, yeah, we are early, and let's see more of this kind of collaboration going forward. Thanks so much.
Let's let's keep building and educating
Yes,
together. See
let's
you
keep
soon.
building.
Bye bye.
Thank you.